Welcome to the second viewing, where we watch things twice so you can listen once. I'm Kyle.
I'm Dan.
And welcome back to the second viewing podcast, everybody. This is episode 33, I do believe, of the second viewing podcast.
Getting up there these days.
Exactly. And if you're a new listener out there, this show essentially is a show where we like to take a look at a film we've already seen before, talk about our initial thoughts on it, take a break, and then come back and talk about if the film holds up on a second time. What was worse? What was better? Is it worth a watch? Is what essentially we're trying to get down to. And this week, the film of choice is the 2016 film Passengers. Starring good old Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. Now, before we get into that, one thing we like to do on the podcast here is kind of talk about what we've been doing in the past couple weeks, because the podcast here comes out every second week on the Fridays here, while our off-the-cuff segments come out every Monday. So sometimes it feels like a lot of time passes. I feel like a lot happens.
It does, yeah. A lot does happen. I mean, since the last time we did a podcast. Well, what was our last podcast? The Nice Guys?
We haven't done The Nice Guys yet.
Oh. Shit, spoilers.
Nice. Dogtooth was the last one, of course.
Dogtooth.
So you guys can peep game on that one if you haven't seen it yet. And I'm just going to check. I think I might have been wrong about the number of this episode. This is actually episode 34, not 33.
34.
My bad, everyone. Dogtooth, of course, was our last one. We had our friend Gavin from Gavin's Things on the second half of the show there. One of his favorite films. But, this, to get back on track for this week's episode. Yeah. Daniel, what have you been watching lately?
Well, as far as things I've been watching, I guess some random TV shows and movies. Usually I like to put something on before bed. The most recent one I can think of is The Great Wall with Matt Damon, which you brought to my attention as the first collaborative American and Chinese made film, or something along those lines.
Beautiful breaker noise coming in there. A little loving that. I don't know if that'll pick up or not, but I was into it.
Yeah, into it overall.
I don't know if it's the first Chinese American co-production, but it holds a record for like the most expensive one, and like it has a lot of prestige to it. I think it's the first, but now that I think about that might not be right. But I know it's like there's an important connection between the two countries collaborating.
Right, and so. Anyways, that is a not good movie in my opinion.
It looks great.
And the thing is like it's the Matt Damon tries to do this different accent that isn't him, and he tries to like it's an action movie and you see him kicking ass, which he's very used to, but also I don't know, it's like Matt Damon went to China, It's exactly what it feels like, and it's
Is Matt Damon starting to look old to you at all? I feel like he's starting to look a little old to me.
His cheeks starting to get pudgier.
But I mean, in terms of like an action star, does he still like pull it off?
I don't know. In Bourne, I think he was still a good action star.
I never saw the latest one. He's still like kicking it. So
well, he's still kicking ass. I'm not going to say that's a better movie than the others, but he's still kicking ass. I think he's
in terms of like
doing things.
Current day though.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's pretty good so far. Like, he can hold it for a few more years, yeah.
Yeah, Matt Damon, like, he's not... I mean, if Tom Cruise can still do it, Matt Damon can still do it.
100%.
Shout out to Tom Cruise. Love Tom Cruise.
Love ourselves some Tom Cruise. Now, what else have I been watching? I mentioned TV. Brooklyn Nine-Nine's new season just started, so I've been catching a couple episodes casually of that here and there. And, of course, I'm keeping up with Silicon Valley as they're released.
Right. So great show. Fucking great show.
It is a great show. Yeah, absolutely. And they just announced that TJ Miller will be leaving the show.
Lols rip, bro. Freaking rip. That's interesting, right? I mean, like, I haven't seen any of the new season yet, so I don't know if that's like...
But he carries a lot of dynamics of the show.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like, up to what I've seen, of course, like, the episodes before the latest season, he's a key player in the show, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? If you're going to be missing TJ Miller once he bails from Silicon Valley, he claims it was a mutual thing. Who knows what the full story is, but I'm sure it was. If you're going to be missing yourself some TJ Miller, tune in to the new big banger.
I think you're talking about the one, the only. The Emoji Movie.
Poop, smiles, all that kind of joke.
In all fairness, Silicon Valley might still be on while the Emoji Movie comes out. So
yeah, true.
In any case, you'll be getting a double dose of TJ Miller.
Oh, stay tuned.
So that's nice. Yeah, it's weird to say because we were kind of like, we both like the guy quite a bit, but even looking back, and I don't have his IMDb up right now. I'm sure he's in a lot more than we realize. But just looking back at it, it seems like he's in a lot more than he is, in a way.
Right, yeah. For whatever reason, I don't know. I seem to think he's in more than he actually is when you go and look at it. Because
right.
I have looked at it recently.
I feel like he'll be in a lot more. Like, I feel like since Silicon Valley and Deadpool, he's like the new comic relief dude.
Yeah.
You know? He's been in shit before, obviously, but, you know.
People dig him.
I get that. Anything else you saw you want to mention?
No.
Of note, I guess?
Nothing really worth mentioning. It's been very casual watching for me lately.
That's cool.
What about you?
I've seen a lot of shit, actually, since I think we last did Dogtooth. Yeah, I've seen quite a few really good films, actually. I saw I, Daniel Blake, which won the Palme d'Or last year at Cannes.
Which one is that about?
I, Daniel Blake is about this guy named Daniel Blake, who he's just like an older dude in like his like 60s. I'm pretty sure they say his age in the film, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. Who he's a widow and he's hurt himself, so he can't go back to work yet. But he doesn't have a lot of money, so he needs to work to pay for his bills. So it's a pretty simple situation he's in, relatively speaking. He just needs to go on some sort of like benefit plan or something. But the British, it's basically a commentary on the current like British system of workers' comp and
like disability.
Disability. That's what I'm trying to find. Yeah. Those kind of services, and how since he doesn't know how to use a computer, he's fucked basically, because everything's like, oh, fill the form online, and the guy just like is getting like bent over in all these different directions on like how to just fill out these basic information, and he basically ends up finding out that the English system is so convoluted that it's so hard to win that of sometimes. So he's an honest, hardworking dude, never hurt anybody in his life, but he just gets fucked by the system.
Wait, so is it like almost a documentary?
It's not a documentary, but it feels very documentary because it has a really realistic tone and look to it, and follows this guy's life, and it's not a documentary at all, but it's heart-wrenching because it feels so real. Like you could just totally see that happening to maybe like our fathers or something, or like someone of a different generation that doesn't know what the fuck or how to handle themselves in this kind of situation. And it's a heart-wrenching movie only because it's so real. Like it really shows like a different kind of poverty, in a sense. And I highly recommend it. It's a great film. There's some odd like choice in terms of how the film is presented, like some really weird editing things that kind of bugged me more than they maybe should have. Yeah. But in terms of a story and performances, it's a really good film. I highly recommend that. And maybe the only other one I can note and try not to ramble on too much about is Perfect Blue, which is a 1997 anime film.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about this.
Like honestly, this movie blew my fucking mind. Like it's one of those films. If you ever read like some shitty 10 best anime movies you gotta watch before you die, it's always on there. It's like number like 6 or 5. I don't know. I've seen enough of those just to not care. Most books. I'm like, oh, what's number 1 and 2?
Those top 10 lists.
And I
gave it a pretty generous score on.
Well, I'll get to that a little briefly here. I'm an anime fan, but I don't watch a lot of anime. I guess just in my day to day. I feel like I watched a lot more when I was younger, maybe, and I'm kind of catching up every now and then on recommendations or what's hot, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But Perfect Blue is a fucking brilliant film. Like, it's fantastic direction. Like, I've never seen such well executed direction in an animated film. Like, I mean, I guess people would probably say that about like Ghibli stuff. Like, how Miyazaki's a great director. Yeah. Aside from being a great illustrator or a great, writer. Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna bring up the guy's name because I know he's passed away, but I really do want to mention it. Who directed this fucking movie?
It's got a really cool cover too, actually.
I think fitting. Satoshi Kon. Yeah, Satoshi Kon. He also did that other movie. I think it's called Paprika.
Oh, like paprika.
Yeah, sure.
Like the spice or whatever.
Like the spice, perhaps. I think it's a lady's name in the movie.
Oh, okay.
And then also I did actually even realize right now that he also directed Tokyo Godfathers, which I've also heard is like really, really good movie.
Oh, sure. So this guy's kind of been killing it.
So he's been killing it. Yeah, like I said, he has passed away in 2010, 7 years ago now. But, his body of work is like literally some of the greatest animated films ever. And Perfect Blue is no exception. This is a film that it almost feels like Nolan-esque. It has this very non-linear way of storytelling, and a lot of it is confusing. And like during the middle section of the film, I was like, this is a really well presented movie, but it's just really sloppy writing, I felt, or sloppy like directing even, I guess. But fuck, was I wrong? By the end of the film, everything that happened was for like an intentional purpose, and it honestly blew my mind at the end of it. I was like, this. I don't want to give too much away because it is like it's a classic spoiler film. Like it's a plot about a girl who is like she's a pop idol, a J-pop idol,
right?
And she's asked by her management to become an actress instead. And in doing so, she kind of loses herself in the fame of being an actress and fame in general, and touches on some interesting topics that for 1997 were still relevant, but harken even true now, I think, or even more so now. So
really?
It's really interesting. I couldn't recommend it anymore. Daniel brought up my review or my rating on Letterboxd. I gave it a 5 out of 5 with a heart. That's the high. That's
pretty much as high as you can go.
My DVD copy came in the mail yesterday. I was pretty happy about it. This is the only movie in the history of my life that I emailed Criterion Collection to make a Blu-ray release for this.
To make a recommendation for it.
Yeah, because I felt so inclined after making this. So I recommend it to anyone. Perfect Blue.
That's
Satoshi
big.
Kon.
Has Criterion ever printed or have they ever made anime Blu-rays before?
Not like an anime. They've printed a couple American animated films. I think without counting stop motion, because I think a Fantastic Mr. Fox is on Criterion, and another one called Watership Down, which is a pretty famous it's one of those animated films that looks like it's for kids because it's animated, but it's like super grim and dark and gruesome.
Oh, okay.
It's made in like the 70s. It's really surreal and very frightening, actually. There might be one other one, but no, they don't do that at all very often.
Right.
So it would, and I mean, hell, this is in my honest opinion, it's a bit of an art film, so it wouldn't surprise me if Criterion were to. In fact, when I even looked up Perfect Blue Criterion Collection, people had already had like fan art made of it, like fan covers. Like I'm not the only one who made it. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's made a suggestion. But I think the issue is with a lot of these like overseas productions, a lot of weird like licensing issues might come into agree. So you might just never see it, unfortunately, or maybe not for years. I don't know. Right. Nonetheless, though, it's online. You guys can find it somewhere. DVD copies, legit ones are very expensive. I got like a bootleg one from Greece. I got a package in the mail from Athens, Greece the other day. That was fun. But no, if you can seek this film out, how they do it, I might put it in the show notes at the end. But anyways, shall we get into the film at hand here?
I think it's time to dive in. Maybe a little bit of a plot synopsis.
Well, before we even get into that, I wanted to bring up that you really wanted to do this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not, and I'm gonna
just explain why, I guess, because I'm still kind of curious.
So I wanted to do this movie because I felt that parts of it were so cool that I wanted it to be good, and in wanting it to be good, I sought out reasons, sought out how it could be good. So I started asking, what the fuck would make this film better? And I started thinking about, I think the casting would have to change, though I think Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt are good together for the most part, but in this movie, I don't think so. I could see them being cast together in other roles, but for this movie, I don't think I really dug it. And I think almost they should have taken, there's a couple of different things that I wish they would have changed. But anyways, I thought it would be a cool thing to discuss, what made this movie kind of flop and be unsuccessful, apart from the marketing aspect of it. What made it not a really notable good movie, and what could have made it better. Well, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about.
Okay,
and for whatever reason, the topic, the setting just kind of hit with me, and I was like, this fucking could be really sweet, but instead it's fucking shitty.
All right, well, brief synopsis. I was curious about that, and you kind of mentioned that to me personally off air there. But Passengers, 2016 American science fiction film directed by Morton Tidlum. I'm pronouncing the last name wrong, but he directed The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch a couple years back. It's probably what I would say a large majority of people would know him from. And the film essentially features Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt as passengers on a spaceship in which they've awakened from hibernation. Now, as I mentioned, this first half we're going to try and be spoiler-free.
Yeah.
So I don't want to really give away any crazy plot points here.
Nothing that you wouldn't know otherwise from the trailer or the poster or whatever.
That's kind of our rule of thumb. If it's in the trailer, it's kind of free game for us.
Yeah.
Although that's becoming more and more a free game as time goes on.
Yeah.
But that's another topic.
But they basically, they wake up early from hibernation
Right,
before
yeah.
they get to where they're supposed to go.
Yeah, and so it's them dealing with that because the destination is going to take a very, very long amount of time over their lifetime, essentially. So being awake means they've kind of sealed their fate in a sense.
Right. They'll never get to go where they're
Unless they
headed.
find a way to get back into hibernation, and that expands within the runtime of the film. And anyways, I don't know if we should really get, because a lot of it is plot heavy, and I don't know, I'm kind of terrible at saying plot points without
without giving
ruining
away
anything.
spoilers. Like, I do want to bring up that someone who plays a main role in this movie is one of the robot, or they call him an android bartender that's on the ship or
Right,
on the spaceship. So he ends up becoming like the comedy relief.
He's the comedy relief, yeah. Michael Sheen.
Yeah.
He's actually pretty good in this movie. He's probably my favorite part of the movie, I guess.
Yeah, he is my favorite part of the movie for sure.
But at the same time, it's very it's nothing really to write home about.
No, and I don't think anyone's performance really is, which is
I need to say
kinda
this,
sad.
like, just straight out, that Jennifer Lawrence is fucking terrible in this
Yeah,
movie.
she's not great.
Not great might be it. You're being nice. You're being
I'm
nice.
being nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's so bad when she is freaking out and she's like, "Where's my pod? I can't find my pod." Ah. I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like, it's overacting to an extreme height. It's a little. I don't know. You're talking earlier about how you thought like things that were wrong, that could have been better, and that they were okay in the film. You didn't like them in the film, but I kind of think in theory they're good casting.
Oh yeah, I think so.
I just think their performances are terrible, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that it's hard to say though, because Morton Tyldum is a good director. He's proven himself to be a good director. I think a lot of this is coming down to the script, because I did a little bit of recon on this movie, and the script was originally pitched and presented to a lot of studios in 2009, and was rewritten several times and flopped over and over for 7 years. It was in pre-production with Keanu Reeves and Rachel McAdams before.
Oh shit.
And then it switched to these guys. So I mean, this movie honestly kind of felt dead on arrival to me in a way. Like, it was just it was a fucking shit show to begin with. I mean, it's the kind of thing to me where the scope of the film is so fucking huge. It's a huge high concept film. And I mean, I like to think a lot of sci-fis are like that, but when you're going to make a good sci-fi film, you don't make it about the science. You make it about the fiction.
Yeah.
So you have these elements of futuristic materials, or alternative technology and things that are out of our reach, out of our
because it makes people go wow and wonder and amazement.
So you have these elements that you're working with, and if it doesn't exist, it's going to be very hard to be relatable towards. Mm-hmm. So you have to basically bring some sort of philosophy or different meaning or a message behind the film, and this reigns true from a lot of great science fiction, all the way from 2001: A Space Odyssey to Arrival that came out last year. Where of course it's science fiction and there's aliens and there's space, but at the end of the day, it's about the people and it's about what's happening in that setting. And this film shits the bed on that, because it tries so hard to, hug the ideas in it, the science in it, and this kind of, to its credit, amazing set design, but in doing so, lets these characters become just like these empty vessels that just feel so lifeless to me. And I couldn't get behind almost anything.
It feels like, in a way, they force themselves to make the decision. It's like none of the decisions that they make are because they actually want to. It's because it's kind of what they think is going to be their... That's how I feel about their performances. It's like they're characters that come across as doing the right thing because they think it's the right thing, but they don't really want to. So it's kind of like when your mom asks you to wash the dishes and you go, yeah, I'll wash the dishes, but you ain't fucking stoked about it.
It's funny, though, because I think you're right. I totally agree with you. But yeah, I think the film tries to make you think otherwise, where it's like they're having these internal dilemmas. But in the end, they don't do anything that's surprising. It's all very by the numbers in a way. And this movie is just like a great example. Oh, actually, this is kind of a spoiler. I'm gonna leave that out. Okay. But it's very Beauty and the Beast. I'll put it that way.
Right.
So it's kind of
it doesn't tie in. It doesn't have an emotional sort of finish. It leaves so much emotion out of it. Like at first, you're kind of like, oh, I get it from this character, and I'm understanding this character, and then after that, it's like, okay, now everyone just seems to be fucking hanging out. It's like a Seinfeld episode in a sci-fi movie.
Well, it's weird, right? Because this is the kind of film that almost should have been a horror movie, where it's like you want that tension. Even if it probably would have been a bad horror movie, to be honest. I don't know, but I think at least would have felt a bit more warranted because nothing happens in a way for a good portion of this film, and not that necessarily is a bad thing because in a sense it was there for the plot. I got it, I guess, but it still felt like nothing had any motivation. It was just, they're going on dates and shit, and like it just felt like a whole like hokey kind of a rom-com setting that was far out of its reach.
Yeah.
And you're saying there was no emotion at the end, which again I agree with, but they tried to have emotion.
Oh yeah.
They wanted you to feel something.
That almost makes it worse, right?
Well, yeah, it's like you're trying to just force it in our fucking mouths, and I'm not chewing. Like I'm not into what's going on here. Like by the end of this film, I was like, this is the most forgettable thing I'm gonna watch in a very long time.
Right.
I will remember Baywatch before I remember Passengers. I stand by that.
Why? Because I think the set design is so cool, and it like fucking, it makes me excited to think about, something new in sci-fi where we're seeing like a lot of Alien remakes, and like you're seeing some similar things.
This is nothing very new. If anything, the story is new.
Yeah, the story is new in a sci-fi setting.
The set design is cool. But it's not really that groundbreaking.
But just the idea of the movie, I think I kind of dug that. And so I wanted it to be good. And feeling shitty about it after watching it, I was kind of like, fuck, I got questions. And why is this, why was it this way? And how come it didn't work? And what did it come down to? And what could make it better? And I think if we changed up a couple of different things, we could make it better. Like if we made it more from the perspective of one of these characters, then it could be a cool story.
Well, I don't know. It's just the film from a perspective of a first-time viewer, anyone viewing this, it feels so far removed from either characters. And I guess in my mind, it's like this film just lacks so much emotion and so much heart that it would need to really be full of heart and full of emotion and have these two characters connect and fall in love and really have a story that makes sense and that feels warranted. I don't know if one character having that point of view would be better than the other. I can't necessarily speak on that because I think you could probably make both scenarios all right. But like I said, it's just the direction they took in is such a grand idea. You need to, even though you have this huge ship.
They needed, and a lot of it's revealed by the end of the movie. Like
I'll get into that in a second. The reason they have they have this huge ship in fucking space, literally the biggest body you could put a film in.
Yeah.
It's like you need to make the movie still feel coherent, concise and together. And it's like, I say this all fucking time. I love when the ship becomes a character in itself. I did not feel that way in this film because I was never familiar with many aspects of the ship. Because even when they were in the similar spots, different angles made me think that it was a different part of the ship.
Yeah,
I'm like,
true.
Now they're in the pool. I'm like, okay, whatever.
I want to bring that up too. Is the fucking pool like in the that's the huge part of the trailer that like fucking Jennifer Lawrence is taking a swim and gravity falls out and she's stuck in the pool and it's this heart fucking wrenching moment. But we don't see the pool up until the moment where that scene occurs, and the scene is like about as long as the fucking trailer.
Well, they do show the pool like 2 times before that. So we're familiar with the pool, yeah. But even then, the scene you're talking about lacks all the excitement from even what I felt in the trailer. Because that's another thing I'll mention. The sound design of this movie is terrible. It's so bad. It's like, there's no enticing moments about it. And maybe because I was kind of hoping to have a bit of a thriller aspect, but it doesn't even need to be a thriller to feel having a sense of danger or, what's going to come next.
Right.
I think those elements can be in any film, and in a film of this nature, I was really needing that because I felt like there was really no stakes until the end, to a degree, but at that point, I kind of could fucking care less.
Sure.
And nothing felt warranted to me, and all in all, I had a fucking terrible time with Passengers. but and honestly, when I first saw this trailer, I was like, hey, that movie looks all right, doesn't look great. Maybe I'll watch it one day.
Right.
And, you know...
yeah, and I think at that point we started seeing all these fucking shitty reviews coming out.
Yeah,
we were like, we could see it going that way, and we didn't see it until much later.
Whenever I hear negative review, I always just think it's much more negative than it is, to be honest. Right. So my mind was like, I look kind of lame. It's probably kind of lame, but it might have good moments. I try to be as optimistic as I can be, unless it's something I know is just some bullshit, like... I don't know any Adam Sandler movie most of the time, but...
Well, like when someone gives Suicide 100%.
Oh, fuck, that's bullshit. Also, shout out to our boys at the Stockholm Cinema Podcast. We never shouted them out, like, weeks and weeks ago, but we were on their Funny People episode. Yeah. So, peep game on that. I'll link that in the show notes as well, because we did a Funny People episode, like, a couple... Fuck, that was like a year ago now, basically. That was like episode like 11 or something like that. Yeah, that
was a long time ago. That was fucking season 1.
So we went on their show a couple weeks ago to basically re-review the movie in a sense with them. And I'll link that in the show notes below because you guys should really check it out.
It was a good time, actually. We had lots of fun doing it.
They should be putting out part 2 just before we put this episode out. So that might actually kind of coincide pretty well. Yeah. Bit of an aside, but we're running out of time here. So maybe should we...
I think we should probably wrap it up.
Cap it.
And I think... You know, I'm going to pay attention for, like you said, those connecting moments, and I'm going to pay attention for, you know, the fact that we don't see all the aspects of the ship. I kind of want to really note where this movie went wrong, and I want to pick points out of the movie
I can tell you right now, but
well, I think we should save all that discussion for the second half because I think I've got a lot of thoughts on that.
I will take your advice and try my very best to see how this film could have been well made or how it could have went correct. Because, I mean, I'm gonna say now I think the script is terrible, and if it was almost an entirely different script, it might have been an okay movie. But I will look for it, and I'll even conspire some ideas that we can think about together, or I'll think about on my own or something that could make this film better. That's all I'm really going to be looking for in this. I'll say it right now, I'll be very surprised. It'll be a second viewing first if this film is, I think, a great or passable film after watching it again. Because it honestly put me in a bad mood. This was like The Circle all over again. Jennifer Lawrence, I need to just say one more time, is very bad. So I'm going to see if maybe she's not as bad as I remembered.
I'll
give her a second go. I mean, the show, we give everyone a second go, so I'll give it another go. And
all right. Well, that's a good point to leave it
there. So we'll see you guys after
the break.
We watch the second half.
And we're back.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second half of the podcast here. As you may or may not know, in the second half here, we talk about the film of the week, you know, in its second viewing context. What was better? What was worse? Basically, we were looking for certain things the first time around that we wanted to look for on the second viewing, and maybe theorize some ideas for this film in terms of what could have made it a better film, or even if it needs to be a better film. I'll talk all about that right here. And just a forewarning from this point on, spoilers, all that kind of stuff. So if you haven't seen Passengers yet, go peep game on it. Or if you don't care, just fucking keep listening. Absolutely. Daniel, so give me your thoughts. Give me your thoughts on Passengers the second time around.
Well, first of all, I got to mention that we totally see the pool. We see the fucking pool so much.
Pulls around a bit.
The pool is like the most... That's like home... Like, we see the pool more than we see Chris Pratt's room.
Yeah, and like, what room does he really have? I kind of lost track of that.
So he starts in a shitty suite, and then Arnold or whatever, the bartender tells him to live a little, and he upgrades himself to a big boy suite.
What a risky man.
Crazy guy.
It's funny to me because I think I may have mentioned this the first half, just how I never really had a good sense of what was going on in the ship, like, or in terms of, like, spatial areas, like, where everything was, or where they were a lot of the time, and that still honestly rings true for me a little bit with the room. It might be a little bit more, the room he's staying in, it might be a bit more detailed than I'm talking about, but I don't know, there's a certain scene where he's floating in his room, and it just doesn't even feel like it's reigning true to what I first saw his room to be.
It's true, yeah, because the first time we see his room, we see it from a totally different angle.
Right, and isn't that the same room where he's, like, there's, like, garbage everywhere and shit like that?
I think it's the same room.
Even that looks different to me. Of course, there's got to be different angles and different, like, points of view of the same room. In fact, it probably is. But in terms of telling a story or making yourself familiar with what's going on, does not do a good job of that.
Yeah, and actually, there's a few different ways that you get a sense of that, because I had no idea that when they go out in their spacesuits, like, to the outside of the ship for, like, the casual viewing or whatever, I didn't realize that you had to walk through all the pods where all the humans were.
Yeah.
sleeping to get there at the first time around. I thought it was totally somewhere totally different.
I don't know. Like, I can't really say much more honestly about this movie than I think in terms of nitpicking. I think I was a bit nitpicking the first time around because I was just kind of pissed off about it. But when it comes down to this movie for me, it feels like
It's a combination of different things that make it fucking.
well,
horrible.
yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things that make it not work. I think I mentioned this as well, that I just thought the script was just fucking terrible, and that it came down to really, really bad writing, and that this idea was just way too large to really handle properly in the way they were going to do it. So that's made me think about some ideas on how this movie could work better.
Well, we talked about some during, like we talked about, and we'd mentioned one on the first half of the cast, which was you could have it the entire movie from one of their perspectives, or you could have it, you could make it seem as though both of them are waking up for the first time and hide the fact that.
Right, yeah. This would be I
Right.
think what you're going to say right now is probably the best one, to be honest.
Yeah, and that would be more of the horror movie thing.
Well,
So,
not even a horror movie exactly. I think
like a thriller
more
to some
more of a
degree.
thriller, and I think what we never mentioned this, but essentially what happens in this film is Chris Pratt's character wakes up Jennifer Lawrence's character from sleep.
Yes.
And
yeah.
in doing so, he's kind of sealed her fate because she's awake and can't get back into her hibernation pod to sleep again. So she's going to be awake in this ship for the rest of her life, basically.
Yeah, while it's traveling for the next 90 years.
Yeah, and so she has no way of, she doesn't have a choice in the matter, which is the more interesting thing about the film that maybe could have made it interesting because, like you were saying, it would have been a far more entertaining film in terms of structure if she were just to wake up with Chris Pratt in terms of what the audience is being shown.
Yes,
And when we're
yeah.
first introduced to both of them, they're maybe both like learning things about the ship, and maybe it takes a day or two for them even to notice each other.
Yeah.
And then, what could perspire later on is they become close. Maybe they do fall in love, just like they do in the actual cut of the film. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whether that happens or not, fair enough. And then at the end, near the end of the film, the climax of the film, you find out that Chris Pratt woke her up all along, and it's this big reveal. It honestly feels to me like that might have been like the original version of the script, but this was just like
A
fucked
jumbled,
around.
far out
Yeah.
version of it. Now, I also think that if they wanted to go purely love story with this, they could have quite simply had the characters wake up at the same time from the same malfunction or
Yeah.
a week apart or something and told the story of how they're going to manage to learn and love together. Maybe she has a husband who's asleep on the ship too.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways you go about that. I do think that him, waking her up is like the biggest aspect of the film in that she still wants to be with him despite that fact. And we see her and him, fall in love with each other while the audience knows that he's done this. So it's kind of, it's an okay concept, I suppose, but just the way it's presented is terrible. Honestly, like it feels so forced and it feels disingenuous in a lot of ways. And honestly, this movie is just basically Stockholm Syndrome of the film because she stays in this fucking spaceship with him and just, even though she hates him, and rightfully should, the guy's fucking nuts, she just falls in love with him. And even after she finds out, she falls in love with him. And for really no reason. I mean, sure, they do everything
Like,
together every day. So,
well, I guess how I see it is like, okay, so she hated him for waking her up, but she must have had some kind of sympathy for him being alone, which is kind of shown but not really explained. And then when he potentially goes out of his way and sacrifices his life to save the people on the ship, mind you, that included him. So, but either way, he potentially sacrifices himself to vent the engine so it could cool itself off, to not blow up, and to save the people on board.
but honestly, even at that point, you are still a fucking psychopath. I'm sorry. Like, he's trying to redeem himself for something that is borderline unforgivable, to be honest.
Yeah, it's true.
So, I don't know.
It shouldn't be forgivable. But, I want to
Or
get
so
back...
quickly, at least, though.
Right.
It feels so unnatural in the film.
But I do kind of want to get back to some ways the story could have been told better. Which is maybe something we should discuss about other movies that we dislike too, perhaps.
I don't know if I have any good ones. To be honest, this movie felt so lifeless to me. I was like, this is one of those movies that just feels like it tried to go for such a large idea and just fucking fell so short of it. I mean, we're literally digging at the bottom of the barrel to make this movie a better idea, a better film. We're thinking of all these different aspects, and we're essentially grabbing ideas from other films. You know, trying to insert ideas that were interesting and prolonged entertaining plot that could be inserted into this. And I think the only reason we're really thinking that is because this movie is so by the numbers that it's like, okay, well, it can be by the numbers, but it could at least do it well. You know, right. I think that's fine in a lot of films. Some films are what they are. They're not trying to blow someone's fucking mind, and it's just it's a competent film. I would say Fast and the Furious. You know, it's a terrible movie, but it does what it wants to do really well. So I'm fine with that. But Passengers, it tries so hard to be like a space epic, but epic is like the last thing I would describe this movie as.
It's true.
This movie's a bore. Half an hour in when she wakes up from him waking her up, I was like, fuck, we have an hour and a half of them like jacking each other off for the next like little bit. This is so boring. I was literally laying down playing with this fucking fidget spinner most of the movie. Like,
there's like something that I didn't notice the first time around, or maybe I did but didn't feel as strongly about it until the second viewing, was Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne's great in this movie.
Yeah, his performance almost absolutely, without a doubt, instantaneously captivates you. I don't know if it's you're just sick of Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt at this point, or if his performance is just that much better.
Well, he gives a far better performance, but even that being said, what he's given is not much to work with. The first scene he's in, is really great, and you're kind of you feel like a sense of relief in a way. Yeah. But then honestly, I'll be honest, like the next scene, it's like, okay, this makes no sense, and this is really, the pacing of this movie's fucking all over the place right now. We just spent the first hour and a half saying how they were the only two and dealing with the fact that he woke her up, and now one guy woke up out of nowhere, and they seem to just kind of be like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, come on. That's so lazy. Fucking lazy.
It is really
That's even lazier to me the second time, to be honest with you. Yeah. Like, the first time around, I was more so what you're thinking right now. Like, oh, shit, well, Fishburne's here, and it adds an element to the story, and,
it's like, even if it is fucking shoehorned in, slammed in, it's still, like, his performance outshines the other characters in the movie, and you kind of go, well, it's exciting for a sec, but actually, in comparison, it's like, I don't want him to go now. I don't want him to fucking die.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and he's a complete MacGuffin. He's literally there just to fulfill one single purpose, and he's just there to prolong the plot.
And basically give a couple of answers that really we don't need a shitload of answers to, and the captain's key. Like, the answers we don't need are that something's wrong with the ship. Like, Chris Pratt, you've been on the fucking ship for so long, dude. Elevators crashing, people waking up, or him waking up, fucking lights turning on and off, all this kind of shit. Like, something's wrong with the ship, dude. Are you an idiot? You spend a bunch of time forging an Eiffel Tower out of shards of metal for your girl and reprogramming robots to do little gags and like fucking.
Does the guy not seem kind of pathetic and creepy to you? He really reigns. Well,
he does. Yeah, he is fucking creepy.
It's really weird, and like I'll say it, I noticed that more the second time for sure. I was like, this guy's. You're right. You snuck into her room and put a fucking like homemade sculpture. And she was like, "Oh, cute.
Oh, that's so cute. I've only known him for a week, but it's very cute."
So strange. I mean, I guess you could say in defense of it, well, you don't know what it's like if you're on that ship. Fair enough, but I just think
you could say it's sweet, arguably, but also, it's very
still
fucking
weird. It comes off, and the film tries to make it seem romantic, but it's odd. And it's funny because the movie is this thing, or the movie itself is supposed to be about the people, the interaction with the people, but that's the worst part of the movie. And you're right in the sense that you're talking about how we shouldn't have to be told about all the fucking ship stuff, because it's pretty obvious. Like, visually, it's obvious. There's a lot of decent visual cues in this film that really let us understand what, the stakes are to a degree. Yeah. There's barely any, but sure. Fair enough. That makes sense. No, it actually makes sense. So if they were really to take the time to make, if they really wanted to take the time to make these characters feel invested with the audience and actually have them grow together and make sense of, their relationship and why like some more development on why she's so mad that she got woken up, and some more development on why she fell back in love with him, rather than it just being so coincidental and of the circumstance.
But I also feel
so
like
lazy.
in stories where two people are left alone together for the rest of their lives, in instances like that, there's got to be more of a give and take dynamic. Like, they only have this one fight, they so easily fall in love the first time,
it's
and they so easily fall in love the second time, and they fight for a little bit, and she just kind of, she sucks about it. She's like, get away, Tuesdays are my day at the bar, bye.
And it's not even, it's she's like yelling, you took my life.
Yeah.
Honestly, Lawrence gave such a bad performance in this. It really was shocking, because I honestly thought, like, going into this movie, again, like we were saying, kind of heard some bad things about it, but I really thought that, like, just off the bat, I was like, oh, these two seem like a good fit, you know? Like, I could see these two working together. Why not, you know? They have both strong dramatic and comedic presences. That seems like a good fit for a film like this. Sure, why not? Pratt's performance is passable, I guess, but fuck, Jennifer Lawrence is so bad in this movie. And it's kind of, it's a little unfortunate, because I do think if she was just given some different direction, the movie would have felt a little bit more complete. Instead, it feels so uneven, because a lot of the time it's really just dialogue between the two, but it's not tasteful. It's very, it's at the viewer's expense in a way, because it feels like we're being forced to really feel what they want to feel, rather than just, falling for what they're feeling as they're falling in love. It just feels so forced. It should be more natural.
Exactly. The one scene that comes to mind when it wasn't really natural is when Chris Pratt asks Jennifer Lawrence to go on a date, and at the end of the date they go into space, right, for a second, and she is like holding him in space as they're like hanging by a tether out in the abyss of space for a second. And she goes, thank you, I like this.
Oh, and they try to kiss in the suits?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's fucking cringe. Yeah. That is so cringe. I mean, like, yeah, it's funny, because you're right. Like, moments like that are kind of cute, I guess. Relatively sweet.
You could have a good moment like that, but it's all dialogue and performance. Those are like the two dynamics that you need. Set up dialogue and performance.
Well, on paper that's an okay scene. Why not? Sure. But, like, they just have the most fucking awkward chemistry afterwards. It feels so weird. And, like, even when they're kind of, like, getting hot and heavy, it's not even a very good transition to their bedroom. They're still, like, kind of, like...
No, they're in the suit making out, and then all of a sudden it's, like, them walking up the stairs to the bed. And then, next thing you know, we see Jennifer Lawrence, a bunch of side boob. We don't see boob. We didn't. We thought we were going to see boob. We didn't see boob. We saw side boob.
It's all right. I mean, honestly, she really fucking just... like, put me off in this movie. I wasn't really feeling her at all, and I think it's too bad, because she is a good actress. I mean, she won an Academy Award. I sure as hell fucking have won an Academy Award. Yeah. So, it has to come down to either she was just not really connecting with the material she was given. Then again, this was a movie she was boasting about how much fucking money she made off it. So, you'd think you'd be a bit more aware of your performance, and like. If I knew I did something not up to my normal standards, I wouldn't be bragging about it too much.
I feel like there was more to the script, or the script was severely cut during. That's what it feels like, because I can see a director being flustered about it, and be like, okay, well, let's just quickly grab this scene and this scene, and we'll piece it together to be fine. Let's do it. Let's go.
Or even a lot of it could have maybe been really terrible editing choices in the editing room, in terms of like cutting certain scenes together and the pacing of the cuts.
Yeah.
There's a lot about that, and the more I think about it, it's just really the reason I think I'm so mad about this movie is because I think it's saddening to see a movie that is an original IP, an original idea, given so much money and given such a big project budget, but it's lacking all the heart that, even a lot of these big blockbuster adaptations have. Do you know what I mean? And, we always complain about there's too many adaptations, or there's not enough original ideas in film. And then when we do get one, it's half-assed.
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. It's totally half-assed.
In all fairness, why would studios give money to original ideas if they're always going to be half-assed? Whereas, people are giving critical praise to Civil War and Deadpool and all this shit, right?
Yeah.
So it makes fucking sense that they make more of that shit. And it's like, why can't we, even going back to Colossal a little bit to a degree, it's like, we have these really great original ideas. Let's try to make a really great original blockbuster. Yeah. Can that not happen? I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm I don't know. I feel like that's not a lot to ask, in a sense. Like, I could be wrong, but
Well, it's frustrating because it's like you're literally halfway, a little bit more than halfway. Well, you're well over halfway there. You get the funding, you get the idea, you get everything's there. It's like, how come it all fell through at the last second? Like, what's going on?
And it's I could totally just see it being such a promotional success because it kind of was, right? It was like, oh, this cool space film with 2 actors everyone kind of likes. Fuck, why not? We're on board.
Yeah, well, you could see the crowd, getting hyped for it a little bit. I remember around this time we were seeing some movies in the VIP theater in our town.
Yeah, and there was a lot of previews for this film.
Yeah, there was a lot of previews for it, and I remember the crowd kind of being stoked for that, like, I
well,
want to see that.
And I think we were relatively stoked as well. We're like, oh, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, I remember us doing a gag, like, of course these two are in it, but, like, makes sense, and let's see it.
Also, I feel like there's not a lot of, like sci-fi films lately, besides Arrival, I feel like just aren't really doing anything new. It's very similar things that we've seen. Even we're talking about the project, the production design. Like it's very nice. It's very pleasing, but it's really nothing different.
Well, even the technology so in futuristic sci-fi movies we see futuristic technology, but all of the actual futuristic technology that people design looks very similar.
It's always the same, and I mean that's the same with a lot of Aliens, too. Whenever you see Aliens, they're always really similar. I'll, again, give credit to Arrival for doing something a little different in that regard. Yeah. You're right. Tech, though, is a big thing, and especially in a film like this, where tech's kind of the center of it, in a sense.
It's pretty much,
This big spaceship with all these fancy whistles, and, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're right. It maybe would have made the ship feel a bit more alive and a little bit more, I guess lively, really, is how I could put it. A bit more lively, a bit more character to it. If it had some more interesting aspects to it. I mean, even when the anti-gravity things are happening, it looks kind of shitty, actually, in terms of, like, special effects. And you can tell there's that one scene they just made just for the trailer where they're, like, falling through the air briefly as they're running. Yeah. And there's, like, sparks flying. It happens so awkwardly. And when they start running again, it's this really, like, disjointed run. You can tell they just wanted that, like, 5 seconds for the trailer just to keep that action going. And I mean, even if there were a bit more scenes like that to at least have some interesting events in the film feels like such a long, drawn out.
It's very flat through the middle.
It feels very to me that would have been perfect. A perfect opportunity to really develop the characters' relationship together. And I guess I could see the filmmakers.
Or longer scenes. Like, the scenes with them together are so fucking short.
Well, I could see the filmmakers thinking that the scenes that are there in the middle are their chance to connect together, but it's just so poorly done that it feels like it's not even existent.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird that way, but yes.
It feels like for whatever reason they skip a lot of time in the middle. Like, they go straight from like, hey, how are you? You just woke up, to we're fucking, to I hate you for a long, long time, to Lawrence Fishburne's here and the plot kicks back in for a second.
And you're right, the way they use time in this movie is a little weird. The lack of time feels strange. Even the idea that he was alone for a year and a half did not visually feel like a year and a half.
No, he was there for a year. Yeah, and then by the time Lawrence Fishburne came, it was 2 years.
Yeah, so it I mean, I guess there's kind of that original or initial montage of him playing basketball and shit and doing whatever he wants. Yeah. And, like, I get that. That's
he goes through highs and lows and stuff like that.
I understand that that's obviously time passing, for sure, but I didn't get the sense of a year. Does that make any sense? Like, it didn't feel like that long. And it's hard pressed for me to say right now how to visually do that, but that immediately made me feel a little less connected. And you're right, again, when she wakes up, they spend another year together.
Isn't it weird that, Jennifer Lawrence was there for an entire year? That was an hour and a half of the movie, and yet it feels like it was a shorter time than even the beginning when Chris Pratt was alone.
Which was only roughly 20 minutes. Yeah, no, you're totally right, man. Like, so that is a good point.
That does feel really weird. Also, I sincerely feel like there was no extended dialogue between Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. Like, they never really had a conversation. It was kind of like, the longest conversation they ever had was when they're in the French restaurant and they're talking about her dad. And that's like 4 lines each.
Yeah, it's actually, you're right. Most of the exposition between them is him watching a fucking video of her beforehand where she's like talking about herself and he's like, oh, she's so funny.
Yeah, they never fucking talk to each other, really, throughout the whole movie.
There is the one scene, and I guess that's all you needed, apparently, for them to fall in love.
Yeah, and like...
I mean, I get the idea of, like, cabin fever, like, you're alone together, you know, sure, okay, I can buy that enough.
Yeah.
But there's not enough for me to buy that for the extent of their love for each other near the end of the film.
Right, it's especially considering that. And, okay, before we even jump into the ending too much, I want to jump into, like, still a little bit post-climax here, is...
Good old post-climax.
Basically... Jennifer Lawrence flies out into space to grab Chris Pratt because his tether broke after he tried to vent manually the engine to save the engine from blowing up and not killing thousands of people. Right. She pulls him in. She manages to get him into this super futuristic health medic box, right? And it like scans you and tells you what's wrong with the body, and you select what to do with it. And so she overrides it with the fucking Lawrence Fishburne's ID, remembers the number, selects...
How convenient, right?
Yeah, it's how convenient that he showed up.
Again, adding to his MacGuffinness.
And she selects what needed to be done to save him. He gets saved. Instantly after that, they're all cleaned up and they're back in the same room, and he goes, "I need to tell you something."
Right, yeah,
it's like
nothing's
fucking
happened.
Instantaneously. It's like they go from climax, they kiss for a second, like, "Oh my god, we just saved the ship, I'm all sweaty, and you just got like a whole bunch of medical shit done to you, let's kiss." Then poof, ding, we're in the room.
There is one more scene action between that. He goes outside one more time, he gets in the suit again, he goes outside for some reason, I can't remember why. I noticed that this time, I was like, that's kind of weird.
What the fuck does he go outside for?
I don't know, but I remember he comes back in. When he comes back in, that's when he says, "There's something I got to show you." But even then, like that scene in between is so awkward. It's so out of place. The fact that he even just goes outside right away is like, okay, I thought you just died.
Maybe it's them trying to say like, "Oh, time has passed again, and then things are back to normal, and he's figured this out."
I mean, honestly, probably like
it's probably what they're trying to do, but it doesn't make sense.
I would never fucking read into that at all. It's not clear.
And and then so they're back in that room, and he goes, "There's something I need to tell you. If you want to go back to sleep into hibernation, you can with this medical machine box thing." And then she's like, "Oh, but I would never see you again." And he goes, "I'd come visit you," which is creepy because he'd come look at her fucking sleeping body and fucking read to her some shit. Like, I don't know, whatever. Then all of a sudden, again, new fucking scene. He's at the bar ordering a drink, and she walks up and goes, "Huh, my days are Tuesdays."
That's the worst. Fucking, and then that's the worst joke in this film.
Next thing you know, boom, time passes again. Jennifer Lawrence is narrating the book because she's a writer. Apparently, she started writing. The crew cabin the cabin crew has just fucking woken up, and they walk into like lush green forest inside their spaceship, and you could see that there was a house built, and she's talking about, "We loved each other and we lived together forever, and you've probably been waiting, blah blah blah," or some shit. And it's like
so boring.
It's like, what the fuck? It goes skip, end.
Well, in all fairness, that last scene, they do look off into the distance and the film fades, and then a title comes up and says Homestead 2, so you know that time's passed.
Right.
I'll give that.
That's the only break to the final.
I'll give that last bit, like, fair enough, I guess. I mean, I guess I kind of appreciate the fact that they did show, the rest of the crew's reaction, and they showed a little bit of the result of the film. Sure, I can. That was a little bit, satisfying to a degree, but you're right. It feels so quick. For such a fucking long, boring film, everything happens so fast.
Like, I could see many different versions of this movie, all of which would be better than the version that this one is, or how it came out. I could see, if they did manage to build up the relationship and we can accept that whatever, they fell in love and she decided not to go into hibernation and they lived together, I could see her in the future, like, closing a book maybe as an older lady or some shit, going like, "Well, I finished my book," and then like them walking outside into their I don't know, there could be some fucking corny like scene like that.
I would fucking pass out at that point if that happened, because you're right, it would be corny as fuck in this movie.
It would be corny as fuck in this movie, but I could see a version of this movie that could make that scene really rewarding.
Well, I honestly think that the only version of this movie that kind of works near the end is if she went back to sleep and there was actual stakes to what happened and he paid for what he did.
Right.
I think that's what should have honestly happened. Instead, it was just this weird, convoluted love story that is hard for me to just buy at all.
It's true. It is really, really tough to buy.
And
if I was her, it'd be like, fuck yeah, I'm going back to sleep. Thanks for telling me.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be like vengeful. It could just be like a mutual understanding. Like, okay, well, thank you for showing me this. Like, in all fairness, the movie felt like it was leading towards that. And I was like, okay, like, sure, at least they're both mature about this. But no, they're just fucking insane, both of them. It's stupid.
Okay, but let's also talk about one other super stupid thing. There's 5,000 people on this ship. There's 200 or 300 crew members. And there's one mystical medical box. I don't think so, dude. I feel like there's gotta be one in each wing. You know what I'm saying?
They gotta have more
like one in each section.
Boxes.
Yeah, like what if some dude, like, I don't know, had a fucking heart attack over here? They wouldn't have enough time to drag his ass to the other end of the ship to get him to the medical box.
That is a very good point. That's a very good point.
Fucking horseshit.
They do have a lot of robots, though. They'll be able to move fast in there.
I don't know.
You're right, though. It is stupid. I mean, there's a lot of things like that in this movie that are just so... it's hard to, like, a lot of this film, like, good portion of the film, like, there's so many things that cross my mind like that honestly, by the time that came, I was like, fuck, whatever. Like, there's so many little, like, there's so many things that don't make sense, and there's so many plot holes, I guess you could call them, that are there in the movie. That you're right. If those things were filled a little bit, then maybe the movie would feel a little bit more connected. You know, we're talking about the rooms in the film, or even the water, and these other little things. If those in this mystical magic box, if these things were a little wrapped up a bit, then okay, maybe the movie would feel a little tighter in a sense.
Yes, yeah.
But
or if they talked about locations in the ship at all, like we need to go to the South Bay and like check out. Like, or we need to go, like, they never even mentioned direction. It's like, oh, we need to go fix a thing. Next thing you know, voila, they're in the place where they need to get the thing.
It feels like...
There's no, like, we need to go down the stairs and go through the boiler room to get to the thing, to do the thing.
It's kind of like when you watch a film based in a city, and you're like, someone asks you, what was that city? You're like, oh, it could have been New York, or maybe Chicago, or maybe Seattle, or... it could be anything.
Yeah.
This could be any fucking ship. I have no idea what this is. It's like everything is so generic, and you're right, we get no explanation on where anything is or how anything interacts with the rest of the ship. If anything, they're most familiar with is the bar, I guess, that they go to all the time, and I give credit to that. If they did more of that in the film, then maybe we wouldn't have this issue, but unfortunately the film just fails at that, and
It really does.
It's too bad because, I guess we'll end this a little bit, but if we didn't make it clear, they essentially decide to stay together on the ship. Lawrence Fishburne is dead. They kind of, live their lives happily enough on the ship, then everyone else wakes up and they're fine, and
they're left with a beautiful story that Jennifer Lawrence has written about their life together.
It's a happily ever after in a way, I guess. But... Yeah. I don't know, we've explained a lot, I guess, on how we think this film has failed and how we think it can succeed. But, Daniel, the final question I'll ask you is, would you recommend this film to anyone, and or did you enjoy it on a second viewing?
I definitely wouldn't recommend watching it twice.
Just in general, though. Watching it
I would say depending on the person, I might recommend it. But for most people, I would not.
Don't be passive like this movie. Give a definite answer. You want.
Okay, I'd say generally saying no. I'm not going to recommend it.
You've been watching too much Passengers, I think.
What's that?
You've been watching too much Passengers, I think. Let's get into you, man. That ship's getting to you. I'm just saying,
dude, this ship has sailed.
Fuck, I wish. If it was on the water, it would have made more sense. There'd be more stakes.
She says that, by the way. She says, so we're trapped on a sinking ship?
That's
something she says. Yeah.
That's fucking... There's so many cringe moments like that. I would not recommend this movie to anyone to watch because there's just better things to watch. That's where I'm going to go with it. Didn't enjoy it more on the second viewing, although it is an interesting film choice to do and talk about, and I think it's a good example of a film that had a chance but failed severely, and I think there's a lot of those in modern cinema, but there's not a lot of them in films that are very original.
Right.
And I think it's too bad a lot of the time, and express some feelings about that, but I still hope it's not steering away any investors or producers or studios to not make new content or original ideas. Yeah. We need more of that just to keep things fresh so that in 30 years people can remake those ideas. And
that's exactly.
That's the goal. Anyways, guys, that has been this episode of the Second Viewing Podcast. As always, feel free to subscribe to us on YouTube. That's the Second Viewing on YouTube. Follow us on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Second Viewing. Second Viewing on all the social medias. We try to update that as often as possible, so stay tuned on there for some... I want to do a little bit more like fan interaction, maybe ask some questions and stuff like that. Try to get that rolling a bit.
Yeah.
So also check out the Funny People podcast put on by our boys at the Stockholm Cinema Podcast. Their podcast called Enter Sandman. Check that out. We're on a lot of other like random podcast apps. Check us out there.
If you want to listen to the Second Viewing Podcast, damn sure there's a way.
There's a way to find it. Of course, we have our Patreon, the link, if you're so inclined to support us that way. Daniel, am I missing anything?
No, I think that's about it. Thanks for tuning in this week, guys. Well, I am Dan.
And I'm Kyle. We'll see you next week.